Welcome to Talk About Talk, episode number 135, Communication Skills Advice for Job Hunters. In this episode, you're going to hear my conversation with executive recruiter Sharon Mah-Gin. This is a re-release of one of the top 10 most popular episodes of Talk About Talk. So, what is it about this episode that makes it so popular? Well, it's really two things. First and foremost, Sharon is incredibly generous with her helpful advice. You're going to hear from a recruiter's perspective what makes prospective candidates stand out in terms of their communication skills. These are the do's and the don'ts that will help you land that job. The second reason this episode has been so popular is because of the fun chemistry between Sharon and me. I've known Sharon now for decades, and I respect her very much. Over the past few years, Sharon and I have run several workshops with senior executives focused on topics like personal branding and, of course, networking. We take our job, our work, very seriously, but we also have a lot of fun together, as you're going to hear. Okay, before we get into this, I want to highlight three things, of course three, that I encourage you to focus on as you're listening to this episode. The first is the power of generosity when it comes to networking. This insight is absolute magic. Instead of feeling icky or awkward about networking, Sharon encourages us to think in terms of generosity and what value that we can offer to other people. When you truly lean into this mindset of generosity and providing value, that ickiness and awkwardness goes away. And you'll see that your networking will skyrocket. The second point is the importance of respecting other people's time. Sharon has all sorts of stories about people asking her for help, but unfortunately, not everyone respects her time. And this is a big insight. Make it easy for other people to help you. Be respectful. You'll hear Sharon elaborate on this in a minute. The third and last thing that I want to encourage you to focus on as you're listening to this episode is Sharon's mantra that she repeats over and over and over again with job seekers in this interview and in other work that we do together. It's this: companies hire you to make money, save money, or solve a problem. That's it. So what? Well, when you're answering interview questions or when you're updating your LinkedIn or your CV, make sure you answer the question of the impact that you made. Did you make money? Did you save money? Or did you solve a problem for the organization? Employers generally don't want to hear about your job description. They want to hear about the impact that you made. Absolutely brilliant, Sharon. Thank you. All right, here we go. Question number 3, introvert or extrovert? There's a big question.
A big extrovert with a big E, and I get my energy and joy out of people and meeting new people and old friends, etc.
Who was that? I'm excited to introduce you to a wonderful friend and colleague of mine, executive recruiter Sharon Mah-Gin. Not only is Sharon high energy and a lot of fun to hang out with, but she's also a highly respected and successful executive recruiter. So I figured that Sharon is the perfect person to share with us her expertise on do's and don'ts for job seekers.
Let's do this. Let's talk about talk.
Welcome to Talk About Talk, episode number 107, where we're focusing on communication skills for job seekers with executive recruiter Sharon Mah-Gin. Let me introduce myself. My name is Dr. Andrea Wojnicki. Please call me Andrea. I'm the founder of Talk About Talk, and I'm your communication coach. If you're an ambitious executive with a growth mindset who's looking to advance your career, well, you're in the right place. At Talk About Talk, we focus on communication skills topics like confidence, networking, and demonstrating leadership. If you check out the talkabouttalk.com website, you'll find many, many resources to help you, including the new online course on personal branding, as well as one-on-one coaching, the archive of this bi-weekly podcast, and the free weekly email newsletter. Please go sign up for that newsletter if you haven't already. You can think of it as free communication skills coaching, and you can find all of this at talkabouttalk.com. In this episode, you'll hear my conversation with executive recruiter Sharon Mah-Gin. where we discuss the various do's and don'ts to help you on your job searching journey. Keep listening for valuable insights from Sharon on things like how to kick off your job search, the most common mistakes that people make, how and when to leverage recruiters in your job search, and importantly, what exactly companies are looking for in job candidates. As always, you don't need to take notes because I do that for you. Just keep doing whatever you're doing. Are you doing housework? Going for a walk? Are you in the car? Well, you don't need to stop to take notes because I do that for you. At the end of the episode, I provide a summary of some of the most important points from our conversation. And if you go to the show notes, you'll also find the summary there. Okay, let me introduce Sharon Mah-Gin. This is Sharon's third time on Talk About Talk. You can hear her in episodes 45 and 67, where in both episodes she shares her advice on networking. This is relevant for all of us, whether we're actively seeking a new job or not. If you go to the show notes for this episode, you'll find links to both of those episodes there. All right, Sharon Mah-Gin earned her commerce degree from Queen's, and she's a CPA and a CA. She worked in auditing and as a controller before switching into executive search in 1996 when she started at Korn Ferry International. She's now an independent executive recruiter, having successfully completed engagements in all functional areas, including sales, marketing, operations, HR, general management, and financial. Sharon has also served on several boards, and she's now working with the Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year Awards program. To keep her out of trouble in her spare time, Sharon is an active skier, a hiker, and she's completed several half marathons. Yes, as you heard a minute ago, Sharon has a ton of energy, and it's infectious. Thank you, Sharon, for joining us here today to talk about communication skills for job seekers.
Thank you so much. I'm delighted to be here today, Andrea.
Although we've narrowed it down to the job seeking process, it's actually pretty broad, right? There's a lot of things that job seekers need to be thinking about. And so I thought, why don't we just attack this chronologically? What is the first thing that job seekers should do when they start their job search?
Great way to approach it, Andrea. The number one thing that I always ask job seekers is, what is it that you're looking for? And then from there, what's your brand? What makes you different and unique to get to that end result? So you always start with, what do you want to be doing? What sorts of jobs are you looking for? Do you want to take a step back? Do you want to grow your career? Do you want to change your career? So start with that end goal or that dream or that vision, and then let's work backwards on how we brand and communicate that in order to achieve that dream, goal, or vision.
Oh, you said the magic word, brand. But before we get into that, you said begin by thinking about what your goal or what your vision is. And so how can job seekers really think about what the goal or the vision is?
So I'm going to really tailor my comments more to more senior level people versus It's very different conversation if we're talking with people who are just starting off their career, fresh out of university.
True.
So I'm going to really tailor it more towards that VP, C level, etc. When I say that end goal, for example, let's talk about a CFO search. I'm currently working on a CFO search. So if that CFO, is he sort of end of his career? Is he looking for that next step up role? Does he want to work part-time, global, etc.? So one of the ways to do this is that if you're sort of at that director VP, you want to sort of say, what's the next job I want to take me to that next level of growth? It might be getting global experience. It might be dealing with analysts. If you're maybe capital raising. So let's talk about that first. And then from there, what sorts of roles are we going to be looking for to help me get those skills?
Okay. That makes sense. So you begin with the end in mind. I often coach people, and I try to do that myself, actually. Begin with the end in mind, and then you draw out your path. Is there a general sequence of tasks that job seekers should cover off? So you define what your end goal is. You think a little bit about your brand, which we'll talk about in a minute. But is there a sequence of an order of operations here in order to attain that dream job?
Absolutely. At high level, it's that end goal, vision, dream. And then from there, it would be a matter of, okay, let's look at my current skill sets. And you can do that. This goes back to that whole branding. You can get feedback from your friends, from colleagues, etc. What do you see as my strong skill sets? What do you see as my areas of growth, etc. To get some feedback, to create that brand, which is so critical, because when you're going after that job, there are going to be many people maybe looking for that role. And you've got to really think about what makes you unique, what makes you different in terms of why should you be the one for that role.
Yeah. Music to my ears, Sharon. As we say, unique is better than better, right?
Correct. Absolutely. And I'm constantly saying that to potential candidates. Like, you're giving me motherhood. You're just giving me, every CFO will tell me that they're a people leader or that I do external finance reporting. What makes you unique and what's relevant in this role?
Yes.
Music to my ears too, Andrea.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I know. We're beating to the same drum here. Okay,
Absolutely.
so then you start to formulate what your personal brand is. And then what do you do? Like, I feel like I'd be like, okay, I know what I want and I know who I am.
Right.
Now what?
Okay.
Like, should they be contacting you? Should they be updating their LinkedIn?
Yes, absolutely. Order? So the number one thing I'm going to say is executive search firms. We're like, and if you go through outplacement firms, they'll tell you we are 1% of your search strategy. The true way of finding that next role is another magical word for you and I, Andrea, is networking.
Right.
Like, I mean, a lot of us in executive search, we might do 20 or 30 searches a year. So think about that. It's only 20 or 30 people. So because we work at the senior level, you got to go through a board, they take a while. So number one, you absolutely should let search firms know, because, you could be that lucky one person. But the real way from a job search is working your network. And that means getting out there. That means attending events. We did a great podcast on networking that people can listen to, Andrea, right? Yep. But again, it's just as a quick reminder, is getting out there to events. Events are happening. And that's where communicating your brand is going to be really important at these cocktail parties. Don't waste the opportunities. Sending out emails to your warm network. And remember, we talked about this, the subject line. Don't waste looking for a job. It should be, CFO global, looking for, use that as your branding statement, right? And then with your pitch, your elevator pitch, for lack of a better word, again, in the format of an email, not as an attachment, because everybody reads those emails on their phone, and it's a pain in the butt if I have to open up the cover letter and also the resume, right?
That is a great point. Put it right into the email.
Yes. Make it easy for people to help you.
Whether it's the recruiter or, your network,
the friend or the network or the acquaintance. And that, well, we're going to talk about pet peeves later, but that is one of my biggest pet peeves. Yes.
Yeah, we love people that make things easy for us, right? I totally get that.
I'm going to say it again. People generally are kind and generous and do want to help.
True.
But you have to make it easy for them. To state, I'm just looking for a job. Well, what does that mean?
Yeah.
And if you have target companies that use it, and, some companies I'm targeting are, IBM or Point Click Care or, that's even more helpful, because then it helps people go, oh, I know somebody who works at those companies, versus just saying healthcare.
That's a great point.
Yes. And again, I can't emphasize that. It's to say that I'm a CFO looking for my next role. What industry?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, you've defined your function. It's finance, but what about industry?
Right. So if you can say I'm a global CFO with external capital raising, M&A experience, currently looking for my next role because I was just reorganized out. What I'm targeting are technology companies like Think Research or Point Click Care or whatever.
Yeah.
Much more impactful.
I think you've just actually articulated a really nice template. So
thank you.
I'll summarize that in the end, and also in the show notes. I really think people are going to find that helpful, and it again links back to your personal brand. So we've got define what your end goal or vision is. We've got articulating what your unique proposition is in terms of your personal brand, and we've got get out and network and of course, talk to recruiters, but more so talk to friends, family, colleagues, everybody. And then using this beautiful template that you just articulated.
To make it easy for people to help you.
Yeah.
I keep saying it. Yeah.
What about LinkedIn?
Yeah.
How does LinkedIn fit in there?
Really critical. I would tell you that every single recruiter I know, whether it's in-house or external recruiters, they all go to LinkedIn at the very beginning to do a search, to sort of say, okay, if I'm looking for a board person or a C-level, whatever, almost guarantee you everybody is using LinkedIn. So it's really important that you have it updated, that it's professional, that it's clear on your branding statement, and more importantly, that you have the right keywords so that you're found in the searches.
Yes.
Right? Like I had one incident where I had a candidate who's looking for digital marketing. And I said, let's look at your LinkedIn. Nowhere in your LinkedIn is the word digital marketing.
Yeah.
And she didn't realize it was like an aha moment.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm just going to be a little bit prescriptive here. I'm thinking if we were coaching this young woman, we would say, so you're not going to put it in your headline because you haven't done it yet.
Right.
But you could put it in your about section, like I am seeking this, right?
Correct. Absolutely.
We're not, if it is something you're aspiring to, then say that and use the words.
Exactly. I am for my next role, or I am seeking da. Absolutely. Because as you and I discussed, underneath their name, they're going to have the keywords of who they are, right? Like whether it be people that we've spoken with.
Yes.
We've done a really good job of that. And you've helped them a lot with that.
So a couple people have asked me this. I'm wondering if you have an opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Underneath your headshot on LinkedIn, there's an opportunity that you can have a little ring that says currently
open for work.
Yeah, open for work.
Yes.
Do you recommend that people use that, or what do you think about that?
That is a really interesting question. And like you, I've had mixed reactions too. At the higher level, more senior roles, I wouldn't advise it because I don't know, it just doesn't feel like, again, it goes back to that branding statement, right? Like people may think it makes them look desperate. Right. But then you could also argue saying, well, knowing when I see that as a recruit, I go, yes, I know they're going to be very warm and open to a conversation.
Yeah.
So the way I would answer that is it really depends on your own comfort level. It goes back to what you said about your brand. It's really important, as you and I have discussed before, Andrea, that your brand is unique to you. It has to be relevant for the role, but more importantly, you have to own it.
Right. Yeah. I love your point about more senior executives. It might make you look a little bit desperate because that's what I heard from somebody who's, a professional LinkedIn trainer.
Right.
And yet I think about a week after I heard or read that, I saw there was a college student that was like a friend of one of my sons. And I saw that he had opened for work, currently seeking a summer internship. He actually had that in his headline. And my immediate response was, good for him.
Yes.
Right.
See, I would love it at that level. Love it. It's there. And that's exactly how I would respond. He's taking the initiative, right? Like, you know what I mean? He's really worked on it. It's clear. And I know he's available. And I know he's going to be open to a conversation.
So later on in your career, though, as you become more senior, I think you're right. It might make you appear a little bit desperate. Unless maybe you're coming back after a leave of absence for some reason, right? Yes. So there's, like, to your point, it depends on the context.
Yes, it does.
Yeah. I'd love to go through some do's and don'ts for different stages of our job search. So first of all, just to finish off LinkedIn, I know once you told me that less than half of the people that you're placing or that you're checking out on LinkedIn actually have an impressive profile. So completing it is like a big do, and not completing it is a big don't. Is there, and then using the keywords, as you said, is there anything else, any other advice for do's and don'ts?
Well, I mean, that's where you can let your personality come out a little bit more, right? Because unlike a resume, which is more of a formal document, that about section is so critical because that's where you can let a little bit more of your personality come out. So I always say, if you can do that, and again, it goes back to the branding that we talked about. Definitely, you should list all your jobs chronologically. And ideally, for your most recent jobs, have at least a few key accomplishments. I know a lot of the senior executives just list their jobs and there's nothing under it. So I get you may not want to do it for all the jobs, but I would at least say for the last 5 years. Have at least a few key accomplishments there.
And I know, Sharon, because we've worked on this enough with executives, what is it that they should be sharing?
My 3 golden rules is what you're referring to. Companies hire you for 3 things, whether you're my 20-year-old or my CEO who is making $1 million. Companies hire you because you're going to help them make money, save money, or help them solve an issue. Like, really think about that. Like, I mean, when you think about any job that you've applied to, when you've gotten hired, that person at the other end is going, yes, he or she or they can help me with this and this. And it's usually in the context of making money, saving money, or helping them solve an issue.
I think that is such an important insight for people that are job searching. Every line on their resume, which is the next thing I wanted to ask you about, right? It's more formal than the LinkedIn. And then, as you said, for at least the most recent few positions on their LinkedIn, should be describing what they did, ideally in terms of those 3 things that you just said.
Absolutely. I can't tell you how many times I look at a resume and I look, and so for example, it might say managed 100 people.
Yeah.
And I go, so what?
Yeah.
Okay. So you manage people versus managed 100 people, which I coached and mentored, and 2 of them are now in leadership roles.
Yeah.
Right.
Impact, demonstrating impact.
Exactly. Or the one in terms of, did a turnaround or an M&A deal.
Yeah.
5 of them.
Yes.
So what? Be tough on yourself and say, so what, to every bullet point you have on your resume when it comes to key accomplishments, and finish the other half of that sentence. Again, it's about making money, saving money, helping solve an issue.
Anything else in terms of the resume, do's and don'ts, maybe especially the biggest mistakes that you see people making with their resume?
Yeah, absolutely. Too wordy, where all I see is a bunch of words and I'm just inundated. We don't like functional resumes. We prefer chronological resumes. Okay. When you have a functional resume, you've broken it down by your areas of attributes. You're making me work too hard to understand your background.
Yeah.
Most people like to start at the bottom, where they go to school, any interesting hobbies. Like, ideally you want to put interesting hobbies. Otherwise you're just wasting words.
Yeah.
Like, where did you go to school? What was your first job? And those, you don't need a lot of facts if you've worked for 20, again, at the senior levels, the first 3, just list them so that I can quickly go, okay, they graduated, they did this, I get it. Like, say a farmer person, they did sales, they carried the bag, they became an account manager. And then as you now get into the management roles, then you want to see a little bit more of the key accomplishments. And certainly in the last 5 years, you want to see a little bit more piece to that. So no more than 2 pages. Less words is better than too many words. Yeah. Keep it tight. Yeah. Keep it concise. The human brain can only usually process 3 key thoughts. Otherwise, after that, they forget. They lose it.
The power of 3. The power.
You got it.
Yeah.
And you did a wonderful podcast on that, Andrea.
So the power of 3, I think, nicely aligns with what you said at the beginning about making it easy. Make it easy for recruiters. Make it easy for the people that you're networking with.
Correct.
So, okay. So moving on now to networking. And what about informational interviews? Do you have do's and don'ts about networking, and specifically about, I know a lot of people that I know that have been on job searches recently said, step 1 for me is to do a bunch of informational interviews.
So, information interviews typically are done through an introduction, right? Like, it's hard to do cold call information interviews.
Right.
I find them helpful if you can really, again, it goes back to that networking and reciprocality. Like, for example, sometimes I get a reach out going, hi, I don't know you, but I'm looking for a job and was wondering if you could have some time in the next week to have a discussion on the job market. Yeah. And frankly, that makes me go nuts because it's a cold call. Yeah. I don't know who you are. And you think I have nothing better to do than to sit there and talk about the job market with you. Are you not doing any of your own research? Are you not going, there's a lot of resources out there. You can Google anything and you can YouTube anything, right? So it's almost an insult versus someone that says, I was referred to you by Andrea. She speaks of you highly. I'm interested in going into executive search. Would you have 20 minutes that you can that I really just want to know about the key success factors and the failure factors about a career in executive search, right?
So use your network to find people that you can do informational interviews with. I really like that point. I agree. Again, you're also, it's the thing about respect and making it easy for the other person. I was thinking it's probably a friend of a friend, or it could be fellow alumni, right? So maybe the same high school or the same college, or maybe even the same company, right? Like you both worked at the same company at some point. You could say, I'd really love to hear your experience as you transition to whatever, because I'm going to be doing the same thing. And then keep it short. You don't have to book an hour.
And you say that, yet the power 30-minute meetings, no more than 30 minutes, right, Andrea?
Yeah.
I've applied that. You mentioned that to me before, and you're absolutely right. It keeps the conversation tighter. And again, go back to the power of LinkedIn. An excellent point. When you're doing those information interviews, so say I want to get to Andrea and someone's referred me, when I go and I look you up on LinkedIn, it will show me who my mutual connections are. And I can look at that and going, I want to speak to Andrea. And I notice that 5 of those people are really buddies of mine. So I'll contact them and say, I want to get to Andrea. And I notice that you're connected to her. How do you know her? That mutual connection section, right?
Yep.
That is invaluable in terms of warm introductions.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And people generally will love, and that's an easy ask. Can you please, if you know the person well enough, can you please introduce me? Yeah.
Correct.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
So let's move on to interviewing. I'm sure you've got all sorts of stories, right, about people that you've brought in for a client who's hiring and then the person messes it up in the interviews. Yes. Can you share some basic do's and don'ts for interviewing?
I'm going to first start off with the power of even a simple thank you.
Yeah.
I am amazed at how many candidates who have done an interview don't write a thank you note. And it comes up when, for example, when I'm doing a debrief with a candidate and they said, well, Sharon, I wish I talked about this, or I could have clarified this. And I said, well, you have a second shot at it. And they go, what do you mean? I said, that's the power of the thank you note. In that thank you note that you're going to write, you thank them for their time. But then you also say, I just want to clarify, or, I hadn't thought of that, Sharon.
Yeah, brilliant.
So, number one, the power of just doing a thank you note, right? And then number two, obviously, these are basics, but preparing yourself for the interview, right? Get on their LinkedIn, check out who they are, see who the mutual connections are, obviously review the company information, the position profile, go in prepared, have a few questions that, do you have questions, but the expectation is maybe 2 or 3.
Right.
Anything more than that, you're taking up too much time.
Right.
Watch the time. Usually they'll tell you if it's an hour, be respectful, etc.
Speaking of time, somebody told me once they were searching for a new job, and this was the second round of interviews. Somebody had booked a 30-minute interview, and she thought to herself, this is that meeting where if it's only 30 minutes, I know I didn't get the job. So when she herself is booking off time to be interviewed, even if they only say it's 30 minutes, she would give an hour, because she said in her experience, when the interview is going well,
yes,
the person will extend it. Do you think that might be true?
Yes. Absolutely. Because I try not to book that tightly, like 30 minute on the top. Yeah. I try to allow myself a few minutes. And if I'm continuing, it's because I'm enjoying the conversation, right? So I think there is some truth to that. People do the 30 minutes so that way you manage expectations. You won't feel, if I booked an hour, I knew you weren't going to be my candidate, and I only give you 30 minutes, that may come across as rude, right? So you're better to say 30 minutes and then extend, and a lot of times I will say, do you have another 10 minutes or 15 minutes? So never book yourself that tight.
Yeah, that's a nice insight. So keep yourself open on the back end. Okay. Any other general do's and don'ts that you have, Sharon, for job seekers?
There's just so many. So I'm just trying
how about some pet peeves?
I was going to try to be respectful of your time, and certainly I've shared stories with you over the year. Pet peeves. Okay, pet peeves for me are people who are job seeking who come to me and are very generic and have not prepped. They expect me to do everything for them. They can't tell me a branding statement. They can't communicate to me what they're looking for. Like, you tell me you're a salesperson and nowhere in your resume is the word sales.
Right.
And I'm serious when I say that. And they look at me going, oh, or, what's your brand statement? I'll say motherhood. You're just giving me motherhood. I'm a salesperson. Okay, one more. What's your differentiator? Why are you different? Why should I hire you? How are you going to help me make money? If you don't have those answers when I'm meeting you for a job, shame on you.
Yeah.
Then you're just wasting my time and your own time.
So Sharon, it sounds like you're saying that if the person hasn't developed and articulated their personal brand, they're making it really hard for themselves.
They are. And you know what else? You only get one shot at it. And people are going to remember that. So you're at a cocktail. As I often coach people, you're not clear on your brand. Here are some things for you to think about. And I would ask, don't go out to the market. Don't go attend any events because people are going to ask, oh, I'm sorry to hear, but yeah, what are you looking for? If you can't articulate that, that's a wasted opportunity.
Right.
Our world is getting crazier and crazier with social media. We all know that between LinkedIn and Facebook and stuff. And you find that it's moving quickly and people want to help, but they want you to make it easy for them. They want to remember your brand. And if you cannot articulate that clearly, then you're just wasting everybody's time.
Yeah. And I would say the advice that I would give to someone who was walking into one of those cocktail parties would be, as you said, what is the one thing you want them to remember about you? You don't want it to be, Andrea's looking for a job. You want it to be, Andrea would be awesome in a job where whatever that unique thing is, right? So
as a communications coach, as Andrea, that's you totally get it. That's exactly what I'm saying. I can't tell you, unfortunately, it's probably more often than the exception.
So before we get to the 5 rapid fire questions, I just want you to clarify for everyone, because I know as I've gotten to know you very well over the last couple of years, it's become pretty crystal clear to me what the role is of executive recruiters in this process. But then I hear people talking about, I'm job seeking, so the first thing I'm going to do is reach out to a bunch of recruiters. And I'm like, So can you just share with the listeners how they should be thinking about the role of executive recruiters and maybe some do's and don'ts? And maybe there are different types of recruiters. Just give us a quick summary.
Okay, again, I'm talking at the senior levels, okay? I'm talking about retained search. We are 1% of your search strategy. Your first thing that you should be thinking about is, what is my brand? And figure out where your end goal is. We are executive search firms, retained search firms are such a small piece. As I mentioned to you, a lot of us maybe do 20, 30 searches a year. So think about that from a numbers perspective, right? And
what I've told people is, your client as an executive recruiter is the firm.
Correct.
Not the people that are looking for a job.
My clients pay me. So that's where they get confused, because contingency firms will shop your resume, right? Because they only get paid if you hire them. I'm paid on a retainer basis, like a trusted lawyer or an accountant. So I work for the client, not for the job seeker.
Right. Okay. That's great to clarify that. Okay. All right. Are you ready for the 5 rapid fire questions, Sharon?
I am. I always love this part.
Okay. What are your pet peeves?
Well, we talked about it earlier, but in terms of job search, I'm going to do it that way. People who forget to say thank you, people who are not clear on their branding, so they haven't prepped.
Okay, next question. What type of learner are you?
Definitely visual. Absolutely love seeing photos. And you're such a wonderful and beautiful artist, Andrea. So I'm always admiring your artwork and your colors and stuff. Definitely.
Okay,
visual.
and your check is in the mail, Sharon. Okay. Question number 3. Introvert or extrovert? There's a big question.
A big extrovert with a big E, and I get my energy and joy out of people and meeting new people and old friends, etc.
Yeah, ditto. Okay. Question number 4. Communication preference for personal conversations.
Depends on the relationship, but I am loving Zoom these days because I've really adjusted, and part of it is I really feel now very comfortable with it, and I can really feel the emotions, etc. And if you think about it from an executive search, I've had the best fiscal year I've had in a lot, in my search career in the last 2 years. And everything has been done on Zoom, which means I've successfully closed all my searches, which means that I can obviously assess people very well on Zoom or on video. So therefore, I really love that from a business, but certainly on personal relationships, I love the in-person.
Okay. Last rapid fire question. Is there a podcast or a blog or an email newsletter that you find yourself recommending the most lately?
I'm constantly recommending yours, Andrea. You really actually helped me a lot with job seekers. And then the other podcast that I've really enjoyed recently is the Jay Shetty one, because what I found is that he really ties in both the spiritual and the business side. So I've really enjoyed listening to that.
Okay. I'll leave a link to those in the show notes. And
that's great.
Thank you for referring all the people to talk about talk, Sharon.
Yes, believe me, I think you're helping me. And I don't have to repeat myself. It's almost a standard part of my courtesy interviews, to be frank with you.
Oh,
for
I
any job
appreciate
seeker.
that. Yeah.
Yes.
Is there anything
amazing.
else you want to add in terms of communication skills for job seekers? Things that will help them.
Absolutely. Number one, attitude. Be positive. If you do the work, I can almost guarantee you will find a job. And obviously, how are you different and positive and unique and relevant for that role? And how do you make money, save money, and how do you solve the problem?
Brilliant. You just wrote the summary for this podcast episode. Thank you. Thank
You're
you
very
so
welcome.
much, Sharon. I know you're going to help many, many job seekers. Thank you so much.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you so much. Take care.
Sharon, you're awesome. Thank you. Now, as promised, I'm going to briefly summarize our conversation to identify some of the main learnings. I went through the transcript for us and I pulled out 3 things to emphasize. The first, where to start. 3 things to do when you kick off your job search. The second is 1 general piece of advice to always keep in mind when you're networking and interviewing. And the third thing is what employers are looking for with job candidates. Okay, first, you're kicking off your job search. What do? Number 1, according to Sharon, is develop your unique personal brand. Music to my ears. She talks about the significance of articulating your superpower, what makes you remarkable, and what makes you unique. The second thing to do is to identify exactly what you want. Is it a change of culture? Is it more or maybe less responsibility? Is it a change of discipline or in industry? What exactly are you looking for? You need to know this. And then the third thing in terms of kicking off your job search is to update and optimize your LinkedIn profile. Prospective employers will go to LinkedIn first. So let your personality show through in your LinkedIn profile. This is less formal than a resume. And ensure the appropriate keywords are there. Be discoverable. Sharon talked about how the open for work headshot frame is effective for more junior people, but perhaps not for senior leaders. And if you're seeking a change, you might want to mention it in your LinkedIn headline and or in the About section. If you want to learn more about optimizing your LinkedIn profile, see Talk About Talk episodes number 101 and number 62. I'll leave links to those in the show notes. Okay, so that's 3 things to do when you're kicking off your job search. Okay, the second insight that I want to emphasize from my conversation with Sharon is the general piece of advice to keep in mind when you're networking and you're interviewing. Can you guess what it is? It's be respectful. This was a common theme in our conversation. Being respectful, as in being generous, being a giver, not a taker. Being respectful, as in being prepared, even for informational interviews. As Sharon says, you can Google anything. Don't waste people's time. Being respectful, as in always saying thank you and following up with at least a thank you email. The thank you note is your second chance to emphasize something important. That's a great insight. Being respectful means making it easy for people to help you. Sharon highlighted, for example, how you should reduce clicks and avoid attachments. If possible, put whatever you're asking for advice on right in the body of your email. And also, make it easy for people by being specific about the type of job you're looking for or about what they can do for you. Okay, and lastly, in terms of being respectful, Sharon says, keep it concise. Chronological resumes are much easier to understand and to read than a functional resume. So keep everything concise, whether it's an email, whether it's a resume, shorter is better. So that's the second insight. Be respectful, of course. The last thing, the third and last point I want to leave you with is that employers hire people who can help them make money, save money, and or solve a problem. What does this mean? This means that if you want to be successful, you should ensure that your resume highlights how you made an impact. Ask yourself, so what after every single line in your CV? The other thing you can do is verbally tell employers directly exactly how you can help them do these three things. How you can help them make money, how you can help them save money, and or how you can help them solve a problem. Okay, got it? Those are the three things. How to kick off your job search, being respectful when you're networking and interviewing, and what employers are looking for. Make money, save money, or solve a problem. And that's it. Thank you again to Sharon for so generously sharing her insights and her energy. You can connect with Sharon on LinkedIn and find links to her 2 other Talk About Talk podcast episodes focused on networking in the show notes on the talkabouttalk.com website. While you're there, I hope you'll sign up for my communication skills newsletter. It's like getting free communication skills coaching in your inbox once a week. You can sign up easily on the website at talkabouttalk.com. I hope you found some helpful insights in this episode, and I hope you'll share it with your friends. Thanks for listening, and talk soon.